I won't stop till I hear him say,
institutional investors with assets of up to US dollars $57 trillion. Okay, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another CYPRX video breakdown. Man, ladies and gentlemen, do I have a banger for you all today, going down the rabbit hole, displaying some fundamentals and some documents via some PDFs that I found that either directly or indirectly correlate Ripple to some recent fundamentals that have just developed and come out just a couple of hours ago. So we're going to start here on this fundamental from Cointelegraph. If you all enjoy deep rabbit hole dives like this, I get excited when I find interesting crypto research like this. Again, I am set here as an influencer, not only as a mentor, but as an influencer, to show you all that if you do deep research, you will come to find out that Ripple is either always indirectly or directly correlated with massive fundamentals that it released like this one. So if you all enjoy deep breakdowns like this, again, they do take time to make. I appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel, smash that thumbs up button, and share these videos with friends and family members or others that we have on our channel like it. So let's jump in. This article from Cointelegraph reads, FSB, IMF, and BIS papers set global crypto framework, says G20, or they are set to establish global crypto framework, says the G20. That's what this article is about. Now, remember these acronyms right here, because we're going to get into this. These multilateral development banks, that's another acronym to remember, the MDBs, okay? We're going to get into what these acronyms are, who these individuals are, and they're going to play an important role in this fundamental breakdown. So, a series of recommendations and papers setting standards for a global crypto regulatory framework will be released by the institutions in July and September. That is a massive sentence right there. I like how they have the all-seeing eye right here on their Cointelegraph page as propaganda. That's interesting. Side note, though, the Financial Stability Board, FSB, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the Bank for International Settlements, again, all MDBs, multilateral development banks, will deliver papers and recommendations establishing standards for a global crypto regulatory framework announced on February 25th. The group, the 20th biggest economies of the world, collectively known as the G20. It goes on to say, according to a document summarizing the outcomes of the meeting with finance ministers and central bank governors, the FSB will release by July 2023, that's summertime, recommendations, on regulation, supervision, and oversight of global stablecoins, crypto assets, activities, and markets. So as we go down the rabbit hole, you guys are going to see the layers of the onion start to just peel back. And you're going to see how in some way, shape, or form, via the documents that I have to share with you all today, Ripple is either directly or indirectly correlated with all of this, okay? And that is massive. So we go on to say, the BIS will also submit a report on analytical and conceptual issues and possible risk mitigation strategies related to crypto assets. This report's deadline is not mentioned in the document. A G20's Financial Task Force will also look at the use of crypto assets. This was very interesting right here, where it says the G20's Financial Task Force. I want to take your attention real fast over to a PDF. Now, this PDF is from the OECD. However, the Financial Task Force for the G20 played a role in this. And I'm going to show you that how they mention Ripple and XRP as well in this PDF. So this is going to start to take us down the rabbit hole. Now, if we scroll down here to page 6, it goes on to say, this lineup will work with our long-term investment and institutional investors, where we have dedicated projects and OECD G20 task force, as well as our work on SME finance. We discussed many of the financing alternatives that CMU could foster to make SMEs less bank dependent and improve the financing of young domestic startups. It goes on to say, new forms of lending and investing should also be encouraged to tap into the resources of institutional investors with assets of up to US dollars $57 trillion. We go on down to page 8. This is where it mentions Ripple and XRP again, alongside the OECD and the G20 task force being mentioned on the same exact PDF. It says the OECD, we have also looked at issues related to the emergence of cryptocurrencies and new payment systems. In September last year, I presented some of the work on Bitcoin and related systems, and later today, there will be discussions on distributed ledger technology. It goes on to say, it is interesting to see how this innovation spurred competitors that created what I think are nimbler systems, and how with the entrance of banks and other big players, the focus has definitely shifted from a revolutionary defiance of creating a currency outside the central banking system. It goes on to say, Ripple is an interesting case and point that it could well serve as a model for bank evolution currently already used by some banks and being tested by others. Here we see in the figure Ripple protocol versus traditional cross-border payments. It also mentions Ripple as a virtual currency and has down here labeled in red XRP. Interesting to say the least, again, tying in either directly or indirectly the G20 task force, which just released an interesting fundamental that has a PDF mentioning Ripple and XRP. We go on with this fundamental and it continues to say, during the event, the United States Treasury Secretary Yellen said it was critical to put in place a strong regulatory framework for crypto-related activities. Now, just today, she also said, this fundamental just came out from Watcher Guru, cryptocurrencies safe from ban, U.S. Treasury Secretary promises robust regulations. Now, this was very interesting and very positive for the crypto space because it says the U.S. is not planning to outright ban cryptocurrency assets. According to the details from the meeting, the G20 Presidents Group received collaborative support from the International Monetary Fund and the U.S. Speaking to Reuters, Yellen mentioned that there won't be an outright ban, but rather a strong regulatory framework. She goes on to say, we haven't suggested the outright banning of crypto activities, but it is critical to put in place a strong regulatory framework. Now, this all stems from just the previous day. This is the day prior to these two fundamentals coming out. We saw a coordinated global crypto policy, G20 key financial stability priority. Now, this fundamental comes into play with the MDBs, again, the multilateral development banks that I mentioned to you all. We're going to start to go down the rabbit hole with those. So check this out. This fundamental says the first G20 finance ministers and central bank governors, or FMCBGs, again, another acronym, meeting under India's presidency discussed key financial stability and regulatory priorities. Remember this right here. We're going to come back to it. India urged member nations to understand the macro financial implications of crypto assets and recommended formulating a coordinated global policy. So let's just pause right here for a second and remember this acronym, financial ministers and central bank governors. I want to take your attention over here to a PDF where it's from BRICS finance ministers and central bank governors. There is that acronym, FMCBG, right here. And it goes on to say, here I have highlighted for you on page 1. This is where we're going to get in the correlation with vocabulary and the synchronicity with Ripple. Again, for those of you who have followed us on YouTube, you know exactly what it is that we're about to do. Key vocabulary, key phrases play important roles. So check this out. Here I have highlighted in blue for you all a new era for global development that plays an important role. So remember that. It says, we, the finance ministers and central bank governors, again, the FMCBGs of BRICS countries met virtually on June 6, 2022, under the theme of foster high-quality BRICS partnerships, usher in a new era for global development. Let's pause right there. I want to take your attention over here to a Ripple fundamental where it literally says up here, ripple.com, expanding crypto innovation, a new era of global finance, right on the Ripple website in correlation with the FMCBG's PDF fundamental that says a new era for global development, right? Not enough, let's continue. We come down here to page 2 and it says, recognizing infrastructure development important role in propelling economic growth, we will work with all parties to effectively bridge the infrastructure in the investment gap. Again, what is XRP utilized to do? Bridge one currency to another. Interesting. And watch what I'm going to show you in this video breakdown. Remember this term bridge. Okay, we're going to come back to that. Including by encouraging private sector participation and finance provided by multilateral development banks, MDBs, in addition to public investment. So you can see right here, Corporation on Infrastructure Investment and Public-Private Partnerships, and having them mention MDBs. Now, again, if you're not too familiar what an MDB is a financial institution that is owned by several countries and aims to promote economic and social development in developing countries. Now, examples of MDBs, like I mentioned before, are things like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the Asian Development Bank, the ADB, right? The African Development Bank, AFDB, the Inter-American Development Bank. So with that being said, and with this PDF out of the way, let's head over here back to the fundamental, where you can see that this all stemmed from the finance ministers and central bank governors being mentioned. Now, remember I told you guys to keep in mind the MDBs, right? Or what the MDBs are. Well, one of the MDBs, the Asian Development Bank, one of the MDBs that I just mentioned to you all, has a PDF right here labeled Distributed Ledger Technology and Digital Assets. Now, remember I told you all to memorize that word bridge, right? Well, if we come down here on this PDF again, ADB, or the Asian Development Bank, is a MDB, a multilateral development bank, which on that previous PDF, this PDF right here, the finance ministers and central bank governors, BRICS 2022 China, a new era for global development, or in correlation with that being mentioned also on the Ripple website, they mentioned an effective bridge infrastructure, right? Well, if we come over here back to this PDF from the ADB, the Asian Development Bank, which is a multilateral development bank, and we scroll down here to page 25, it says, the question of whether a given crypto asset will be recognized as part of a formal payment system will largely depend on how it is meant to be used in a given jurisdiction. Bitcoin and Ether often fall outside, while Ripple and XRP often fall within the system. This is because formal payment systems are generally closed-loop systems. If some crypto assets can be integrated into the formal system, they can be used as a settlement vehicle. And what are they talking about? Ripple and XRP can be utilized as a settlement vehicle. Again, in correlation with the previous PDF, where they mention effective bridge assets, encouraging private sector participation and being provided by multilateral development banks, right? Isn't that interesting how it's all kind of correlated, picking up pieces of the puzzle for you all? Now, if that's not enough for you, let's head over to this G20 PDF titled Making the Global Financial System Work for All. And if we come down here, we can see a report of the G20 Eminent Persons Group on Global Financial Governance. Now, look at what we have here highlighted in blue, a new global era. It goes on to say, we were asked by the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors back in April 2017 to recommend reforms to the global financial architecture and governance of the system of all international institutions, so as to promote economic stability and sustainable growth in a new global era, and to consider how the G20 could better continue leadership and support for these goals. Again, there's that interesting key phrase right there, a new global era, in connection with Ripple and XRP. You guys can see on the Ripple website, it mentions a new era of global finance, right? Now, if none of those PDFs or fundamentals blew your mind in correlation directly with Ripple or indirectly with Ripple, this will. On that same PDF, Making the Global Financial System Work for All, again established by the G20, we scroll all the way down to page 93. And I want you to take a look at the list of contributions. Multilateral development banks, again, it talks about the African Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, which I showed you all the PDF from the ADB, or the Asian Development Bank, where they mentioned Ripple and XRP as a settlement mechanism that could be used by banks. We also see the International Monetary Fund. We see the Bank for International Settlements. We see the United Nations. We see the World Bank Group. Now, right down here, I want you all to see where it says, we are grateful for the views and written contributions from the following individuals with extensive experience as national and international policymakers, thought leaders in private sector, and civil society leaders. And right here, let me blow your mind a full circle. All this is mentioned Susie Athey at Ripple. Alongside these MDBs, these multilateral development banks, which I told you all to remember at the beginning of this video breakdown. So to full circle everything, you can see how Ripple is in some way, shape, or form, indirectly or directly, correlated with these MDBs, these multilateral development banks, and everything that's going on in the fundamentals that have just recently come out with the G20. Heading back over here, overall, what was this PDF about? Building a cooperative international order for a new era of payments. So it's all very interesting how in some way, shape, or form, Ripple plays an important role, all stemming from this fundamental right here, where it mentions the finance ministers and central bank governors and how multiple PDFs come out where the finance ministers and central bank governors right here on this PDF discuss and talk about MDBs or multilateral development banks and how on PDFs from multilateral development banks as such, the ADB or the Asian Development Bank mentions XRP being part of a closed loop system and how they can be used as settlement vehicles. Not only on this same exact PDF do they mention that, but on PDFs where the G20 task force is mentioned, so is Ripple and XRP. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm not telling you guys to go out there and buy or sell XRP or invest in Ripple, the company. I'm simply here as an influencer attempting to drive your attention to doing more research. With that being said, many blessings. I will see you guys in the next video breakdown. As always, be cognizant, be aware, and I'll see you guys next time.
I won't stop till I hear him say